Welcome to Home Remedies for Optimum Health. In this course, you'll discover the amazing health and life-giving superfoods. These are not the latest fads in diet nutrition. These are nature's resources that truly nurture, heal, and energize us, and they have for thousands of years. My name is Elizabeth Heck. I'm an herbalist, and I've worked with healing botanicals for over 20 years. I formulate herbal medicines, and I also write and teach. Adding simple ingredients to your life can have profound effects. This course is designed for those that want to feel better and have more energy. When you're vibrant and strong on the inside, it shows on the outside. By the end of this course, you'll know which foods truly make a difference to your health. You'll be able to make recipes loaded with a powerhouse of vitamins and minerals. And you'll discover new and creative ways to use superfoods for ultimate health. We'll cover recipes in detail that include familiar ingredients such as garlic, and some of those that might not be as familiar to you, such as royal jelly. The ideal student will be anyone wanting to improve their health. The course will benefit those struggling with chronic illnesses needing supportive nutritional therapy, as well as those athletes in tip-top shape looking for the edge. These remedies should become part of everyday life, not just quick fixes from a pill. There are no requirements for the course, just come with an open mind and be ready to be your best. So join me in this truly life-changing course. We're going to make a nutritional seasoning, which is not only tasty, but it is packed with nutrients. It's really simple to make. There's only 5 ingredients that you can purchase at your co-op or health food store, and simply mix them together and store them dry to sprinkle on top of soups, stews, egg dishes, salads, all different kinds of things. We're going to start with nutritional yeast. It is brewer's yeast, not baker's yeast, and it really is high in protein and the entire B complex. Also is really high in minerals and trace elements, so very nutritional. We're going to put in 1/2 of a cup of the nutritional yeast. There we go. And next we have kelp. You can really use any different kind of seaweed. There's a number of different kinds and flavors and colors and textures. I happen to really like the texture of kelp, and it doesn't need to be reconstituted or soaked in order to use it. So I like being able to use it dry, and I really like the flavor of it. Usually when you purchase it at the store, it is in much smaller flake form, but I buy mine in bulk, so it's a little bit larger. So I'm just going to crunch it up in here a little bit, just to make it a little bit finer consistency for a sprinkle. And the flavor is actually really quite nice, very salty. So you really don't need to add salt to a lot of your foods if you're using the nutritional seasoning that we are here. And the seaweeds and kelp are really great, rich plant sources of minerals. They help promote longevity and help prevent disease, and really are wonderful for just increasing overall general health. And I think we're just about there. I'm adding 1/4 cup of the kelp. And next I want to add 1/8 of a cup of spirulina. Spirulina is really strong green flavor. It can be a little overpowering, so I like putting it into this nutritional seasoning to help sort of tone down that really intense green taste. I'm going to add 1/8 of a cup, and it's very powdery here, you can see. It is a wonderful source of a number of nutrients. It's really high in protein, B vitamins, and gamma-linolenic acid, which people call GLA. Wonderful, really nutritious in its own right. In fact, right here on the bottle, they list a number of benefits of the spirulina. Antioxidant protection, cardiovascular health, eye and brain health, immune defense, anti-aging benefits, and cellular health. So that's really very impressive. It's a great way to use spirulina by combining it here with all these other ingredients. Finally, I have 1/8 of a cup of sesame seed, which really deeply nourishes the system. It has calcium, magnesium, also has something in it called sesamol, which is antioxidant and anti-inflammatory. And it's really high in zinc for boosting the collagen, which is great for the skin. It's a nice added benefit to get that sesame seed in there. And finally, for just a little zing, I'm going to put 1 teaspoon of cayenne into my mix. And cayenne is very, very strong, so you don't want to add very much. You can add according to your taste. If you like a little more cayenne, go ahead and add more. I generally do because I like a little bit more kick to my food. Cayenne stimulates the body's natural defense system. It's also really very good for circulation and for the cardiovascular system. Also really helps the digestive function. For those of you who've eaten cayenne, you can tell it really helps get things moving. So I simply mix this all together. And how I like to store it is in a jar like this with a tight-fitting lid, but you could certainly store it in a plastic baggie if that's what you had on hand. And you can even put it right on the table. It doesn't need to be refrigerated, so keep it out where you see it and where you'll use it and where you'll sprinkle it on everything. This power paste is really energizing and building to the system. Every ingredient that I've included in this recipe is a wonderful pick-me-up both mentally and physically. It begins with a cup of honey, which is a natural energy boost and also full of nutrients. Just make sure you're using raw honey so that those nutrients and enzymes haven't been cooked out of it. To that, I'm going to add some molasses. This is blackstrap molasses, and a 1/2 cup of this. Wonderful for nutrients and building the blood and the bone. It's also very good for the immune system, and it does taste good too. Then we're going to add our medicinal herbs. These you can find at your co-op or health food store, or you can order them online from the resources that I've provided for you. This is 3 tablespoons of each, and these are dried powdered herbs. The first one is astragalus. Astragalus is a fantastic tonic for the system, very energizing, and it's also really good for the immune system, especially for more long-term chronic illnesses, but also for the short-term acute illnesses too. Then I'm going to add ashwagandha. And the ashwagandha does not taste all that great. It has kind of a bitter aftertaste, but with all of these other wonderful tasting ingredients in there, you won't notice it at all. Ashwagandha is one of the best herbs that I know of for brain function, clearing the mind, increases memory and learning, and also enhances stamina. It's what we call an adaptogenic, so it helps the body respond to life's stressors, and we all have that. Then finally, the final medicinal herb I'd like to include is ginseng. Ginseng, you want to be careful of your source. You want to make sure that it has not been harvested from the wild, that it has been organically cultivated. And the resources that I've provided for you, they do organically cultivate their ginseng. Unfortunately, it's been over-harvested in the wild, and it's really hard to find, and it's becoming quite endangered. So we want to be careful about our uses of ginseng. This is American ginseng. There's all different kinds of ginsengs. This is a wonderful adaptogenic, similar to the ashwagandha, really restorative to the whole system. One of those great building tonics. Great for mental clarity and increasing cognitive function. So very nice to put in our power paste. Then I have 3 other I would say culinary spices, but they actually are medicinal in their own right, and they also do boost energy. But I'm primarily adding them into this recipe for their flavor because they do taste really good. The first is cinnamon, so I'm going to add a teaspoon of cinnamon. And I also have cardamom, which is a bit strong. I'm going to only add a 1/2 teaspoon of the cardamom, but very good flavor. And then finally, I have powdered ginger, and I'm only going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of the powdered ginger because that is also really quite strong. Then I'm going to mix all of this together into my paste, and it should make a nice thick paste. If it gets a little too thick, I also have a fruit juice concentrate here. This one is cranberry concentrate, but there's also a black cherry concentrate, which is equally as good. And those fruit concentrates have a lot of the anthocyanidins in them. And anthocyanidins are antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and anti-cancer. And it looks like this consistency is actually quite nice without it. If you did want to include the fruit concentrate, just add a little less of the honey and molasses so you can get a little liquid in there. So this is a really nice, nummy paste. You can store this right in the refrigerator indefinitely. If it dries out a little bit, then just add a little more liquid, either the honey, the molasses, or the fruit concentrate to it. And the best way to take this is to spread it on toast. You can put it in tea, you can put it in oatmeal, or you can just simply lick it from the spoon. The Long Life Elixir is a rich herbal liqueur. It's a tonic that builds the overall strength of the system. You can find the ingredients that I've included in this recipe online from the resources that I've provided for you. You'll also want to make sure you have on hand a jar with a tight-fitting lid. A ball jar or canning jar like this works just fine. The first ingredient that I've decided to include is rhodiola. It really helps with vitality and inner strength. It helps rebuild energy and restore the nervous system. This is a half a cup, and simply put that into our ball jar. And I also have a half a cup of licorice. This tastes really good and actually really will enhance the flavor of this particular elixir. It helps to build the adrenals or even rebuild the adrenals when they've been run down. And the adrenals sit up on top of the kidneys and are really responsible for the hormones that respond to stress. And a lot of us have gone through a lot of stress in our lives, so licorice is really good for that kind of rebuilding. The only caution with licorice is you don't want to use it for more than 4 weeks. So if you'd like to use this elixir for longer than that, then just leave the licorice out. But I really do like it and like to include it. Next we have astragalus, and that is this tongue depressor shaped herb that we have here. It's this long root that's sliced. And I'm going to put 5 of these slices into our elixir. The astragalus is really toning and enhancing and energizing to the system, and it also is one of the best for boosting the immune system. I also have ginseng. This is American ginseng, but there are also other kinds of ginseng, Panax ginseng, Korean ginseng, Asian ginseng. You want to be careful about your source of your ginseng and make sure that you purchase it from a responsible supplier that has organically cultivated the ginseng. You don't want to purchase any wild crafted or wild harvested ginseng because it is becoming endangered. And the resources that I've provided for you are all definitely organically cultivated. So very good, responsible resources. The ginseng is adaptogenic, which means that it helps your system adapt to stressors of life that we all experience. It's very restorative, very great for mental clarity. So very nice herb to add to our elixir. I also have ginger. I've sliced it. I didn't bother to peel it first, just slice it and put it right in there. That's a half a cup. And the ginger is one of the best anti-inflammatories that we have. Really fantastic for that. Finally, I have star anise, not to be confused with anise. That's a different herb, but this is star anise. And it tastes wonderful and is very high in vitamins and minerals. And then what I'm going to do is simply cover this up with brandy. You can use other liqueurs such as vodka or rum. I think brandy tastes better as an elixir, and it's also the traditional alcohol that was used. So I want to make sure I cover this up just a bit, so make sure all of the herbs are in the brandy. And then I'm going to cap this tightly and store it for 6 weeks. During that time, all of the medicinal constituents and all of these herbs will extract out into the brandy. I'm going to go ahead and label this with what it is, elixir, and the date. so that I know when it's 6 weeks out that I can strain it. You can go 4 weeks if you want to use it sooner, and it's certainly okay if you let it sit for 8 or 9 or 10 weeks accidentally. But it's nice to every once in a while shake it up. And once it's finally ready, you can go ahead and strain this out through a strainer, or if you happen to have cheesecloth. All the herbs in here are very large size, as you can see, so it's very easy to strain it out. Reserve the liquid, so that is your medicine. And for each part of the liquid that is left over, you want to add a half a part of some sort of fruit concentrate. This one is cranberry concentrate. I like blackberry concentrate is really nice as well. The fruit concentrates are really high in anthocyanidins, which means they're anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, and antioxidants. So a lot of benefits. There's a lot going on with that. We're going to make a chai tea, which is a spicy herbal blend that originated in India, Nepal, and Tibet. It really provides an overall well-being to the system, and I think you're really going to like how it tastes. We're going to make 2 cups of tea, so we've started with 2 cups of water, and to that we're going to add a number of different herbs and spices and green tea. So we're going to start with a teaspoon of rhodiola. It is really wonderful for vitality and restoring inner strength. It helps replenish the system, and especially the nervous system, so it's really good for stamina and endurance. Also is helpful for relaxing during really stressful times. I also have a teaspoon of ginseng in here, and ginseng is one of those herbs that restores the whole body system and helps really rebuild. It's a great rejuvenating tonic. It also is what we call an adaptogenic, so it helps the body adapt to stressors that we might be exposed to, whether mentally or physically exposed to those stressors, and really also helps with mental clarity. So very nice herb to include in this chai and to consume on a frequent basis. So I'm going to go ahead and add these herbs into my water. And then I have a few other spices that I'd like to add, and all of these other spices help boost the immune system. And ginger in particular is very good for anti-inflammatory, and a lot of the chronic illnesses that we see today are due to inflammatory conditions. So it's nice to try to get as much ginger as you possibly can, and this is a great way to get it right in the tea. I have 3 slices of ginger. I didn't bother to peel it. You don't need to do that. Just slice it, put it right in the tea. And then the other spices are cloves. So I have 3 cloves that I'm going to add to my tea. And these are cardamom pods. I have 3 of those. I'm going to put those right in the tea. And then I have these peppercorns, 3 of those also. And finally, I have a half a stick of cinnamon. This is really delicious. That's great. So I'm going to cover this up and let it boil for about 10 minutes. So it'll really extract all of those medicinal qualities from all of the spices and herbs that we've put into it. Once that's done, I can take it off of the stove and add my green tea. I have 2 bags of green tea since I'm making 2 cups of tea. And I'm going to put that right in the water and let it steep for another 5 minutes or so. And green tea also has its medicinal qualities. One of the best in terms of helping to fight cancer. It's also very good for brain function. It has a little bit of that caffeine, but it also helps the brain function in other ways. And it also is very good for heart-related issues. So there is a lot going on with this tea other than just a great tasting tea. Once that has steeped, I can go ahead and strain it directly into my cup. So I have a strainer, and it's actually, even if you don't have a strainer, it's pretty easy to strain this out since all of the herbs and spices are fairly large size. We don't have to worry about really fine herbs getting into our tea. So you could use a strainer or not, either way. Once that is strained out into the tea, you can add a few other things if you like. Some people like a little honey to sweeten it. About a teaspoon should do it, and honey is also actually fairly medicinal and high in nutrients, so it's nice to add it. You can add a little more if you like it a little sweeter or a little less. And chai traditionally is also served with a little frothy milk and some people even sprinkle a little nutmeg on top of it. So it would be wonderful if possibly you could swap out 1 cup of coffee every day for a cup of chai, and it would just make an amazing change to your health. We're going to be making energy balls, which could just as easily be made into energy bars. They might taste like dessert or treats or even candy, but we're making them for endurance. This is either for physical endurance, for long hikes, for example, or even mental endurance for a long day of exams. All of these ingredients are really toning and building to the system. We're going to start with making a base, and the base includes tahini. Tahini is made from sesame seeds, which are really deeply nourishing. We have 2 cups of the tahini that we're going to put into our base, followed by almond butter. And I have a little over 1 cup of almond butter here. The recipe calls for only 1 cup, but you can add a little bit more. There's some flexibility with this recipe. And the almond butter is really high in protein and really healthy fats, but it really also has cardio benefits to it. So nice to add to that base. And I'm just going to mix that up before I add in some of my other ingredients. This almond butter had chunks of almonds in it, and I like that little chunky bit to the recipe. Next, we have 2 of the 3 ingredients that are produced by bees. The first one is bee pollen, which is a powerhouse of energy. Just an amazing ingredient. Excellent nutrition, has 22 of the amino acids, so a complete protein, really high levels of 27 minerals, so very impressive. Also has vitamins A, B, C, and E. I'm going to add about a tablespoon, and I'm not adding too much of the bee pollen for a couple of reasons. First of all, because it is so concentrated in nutrients, but also out of respect to the bees for all of the hard work that they go through just to create each one of these little granules. Then I also have another ingredient made by the bees, which is royal jelly. And royal jelly is really wonderful as a general health tonic, but also historically it was always included in a lot of recipes or even just taken all by itself. As a youth tonic, it really is wonderful for helping to fight the effects of aging. So this is a 1/4 cup of the royal jelly. This one actually was mixed when I bought it with a little honey to help preserve it. Then I have my 3 herbal ingredients that I'm going to add to the recipe, which really are responsible for the endurance benefits of the recipe. The first one is ginseng. So I have powdered ginseng root here, and this is 1/4 cup. And the ginseng really restores the whole system and is one of those building tonics. It's what we call an adaptogen. An adaptogen really helps the body adapt to stressors, whether it's past stressors that the body is trying to adjust to, or even helps respond to future stressors. And this is both physical as well as mental. And it's very good for mental clarity and also increases cognitive function. So wonderful ginseng to add. Then we have rhodiola, excellent for endurance and stamina. Next we have ashwagandha. Ashwagandha doesn't taste all that great. It has a little bit of a bitter aftertaste, but we have so many wonderful, delicious ingredients in this recipe, you won't notice at all. So ashwagandha really helps with brain function. It can help with memory, learning, really helps to clear the mind. It also enhances stamina, and it is also another one of those really wonderful adaptogenic herbs. So we have a lot of really valuable medicine going into this recipe. And we're going to mix this up and add a few other ingredients. We want to form a nice thick paste. so that we can form this either into the balls or the bars, however you want to prepare it. So before we do that, there's a couple of other items to add. There are 2 herbs that I like to add. Both of these have their own medicinal qualities, but in this particular recipe, we're going to be adding them primarily just for their flavor. The first one is a teaspoon of cardamom and a teaspoon of nutmeg. Really nummy herb. And then we will just continue mixing this together and add our honey, which is the 3rd ingredient produced by bees. Normally the recipe calls for a cup of honey, but since the royal jelly included a little honey, I've decreased that to 3/4 of a cup. So we'll add that and continue to mix this up. The honey also has its own nutrition, and it is also very energizing. So we're not only sweetening the recipe, we're also contributing to the endurance benefits of the recipe. So this is still a little liquidy, and I'd like to add a little bit more powder to thicken it just a little bit more. So I have just the thing. We have unsweetened cocoa powder. And the cocoa powder not only helps the flavor, but it has flavonols. And the flavonols have cardiovascular benefits, and they also really help increase brain function. So, excellent addition. And for this recipe, at a certain point, you just have to get your fingers into it and mix it up. It's kind of good fun. So once we get this mixed to the consistency that we like, there's a few more ingredients that we can add, which also have their benefits, but also add a lot of flavor. The first one is some chocolate chips. The darker the chocolate, the better. And you can also add, if you want, some dried cranberries or some coconut, shredded coconut would be really delicious. And all have their added benefits too. So once we have that all mixed together, we're going to form this into nice little balls, just like that. And you can go ahead and eat one of those, or you can even put it out in a pan, like a casserole pan, and cut it into bars and make it that way. That way is actually a little bit faster than individually rolling all the balls. And every day, just eat one of the balls or one of the bars, and you'll have no idea that you're taking beneficial medicine. We're going to make shiitake soup, which tastes great, but it's also wonderful for long-term health and warding off those chronic diseases. It's very simple to make. For 2 servings, I have 3 cups of water in a pan, and to that I'm going to add my shiitakes. This is about 5 shiitakes cut up, and these are nice fresh ones. You can see how nice and bright white they are. That's what you want to look for. The shiitakes are one of the best remedies for boosting the immune system. They contain lentinin, which is a polysaccharide, and they also have infection-fighting compounds in them. So both of those combined really help with immune function. This is especially beneficial for those with cancer who might be undergoing nutritional therapy, or even for preventing cancer. Wonderful anti-tumor compounds in the shiitakes, so it's really good to try to get them into your diet as often as possible. They also have some really powerful cardiovascular benefits. Really excellent, excellent food. And you can use the shiitakes in any way that you use the more common button mushrooms that we see. So I'm going to let that boil for about 7 minutes to cook the mushrooms. And then we're going to add our other ingredients. So I'm going to grab this other pan here with the cooked mushrooms. These have now boiled for about 7 minutes, and I can add my other ingredients at the last minute. The first one is 2 eggs that have been beat, and I'm going to just drop them into the soup. Since this is such hot water, these eggs will cook immediately. It's a little like egg drop soup if you've ever made it. And I can go ahead and stir that up. And those have just cooked that quickly. The eggs are really high in omega-3s, which is wonderful for helping reduce inflammation and also for helping to prevent disease. Just make sure the eggs that you purchase are from happy chickens that have been outdoors running around and that have not been fed hormones or antibiotics. It's really, really important. Next, I'm going to add my seaweed. I always really like to use kelp, and the kelp I can add at the last minute. There are all different kinds of seaweeds that go by different names, and there are different colors and textures to it, and some of them actually do need to be soaked in water before using. If that's the case, just go ahead and add the seaweed at the very beginning with the mushrooms and cook that for the 7 minutes. But this kelp I can add last minute. So I'm going to put a few pinches in, about a tablespoon worth. And this adds nice salty flavor, but it also has wonderful, wonderful longevity benefits. It's very high in minerals. It's high in calcium, iron, zinc, very rich in the B vitamins. And one of the really surprising benefits for seaweed is helping to counter any radiation exposure. We're all exposed to radiation around us all the time, every day, all day long, and some of us more so than others. You know, if you happen to live next door to a nuclear power plant or a cell tower, if you're on your cell phone all day long, or even for those that have undergone a lot of recent x-rays, try to get some seaweed into your diet as much as possible. And it's surprising how easy it is to use. You can add it to soups and stews, egg dishes. It's actually even really good sprinkled on top of popcorn, adds that nice salty flavor. And I think as you work with it more and more, you'll find it's just really easy to incorporate into your diet. I could also at this point add some chives. I don't have any, but that would add some really nice flavor. And it's part of that onion family, so it has those nice benefits, immune benefits. And then finally, I'm going to add some miso. And this is about 2 tablespoons of miso. There's all different kinds. You can use whatever you prefer. The miso you don't want to cook, so you want to add this at the very last minute. It's really wonderful for, includes all the essential amino acids, and it's really good for digestion in a lot of different ways. And miso can be a little thick, as you can see, and it doesn't entirely dissolve. It does a little bit, but so you're going to want to smash the miso up in the pan a little bit, or even between 2 spoons, and just put that in last minute. And one final touch that is kind of fun to add to this soup is the seasoning that we made in another lesson in this course. This is the nutritional seasoning, and you can just sprinkle that right on top, and it adds additional nice flavor and amazing nutrients. So this is one of those soups that you'll enjoy and want to make often. We're making a stew that is highly nourishing and restorative. I like to make this for people that have been under the weather or are going through an illness, or even for people who are in the hospital. I like to bring them a bowl of this. It really helps to rebuild the strength. This is one of those one-pot meals that has a lot of different ingredients, but you can mix and match based on what you have on hand or what you can find at the store. So I have in a big pot here about 10 cups of water. And to that, I'm going to add barley as our first ingredient, which really helps build strength and endurance. This is 1 cup of barley. And next, I'm going to add some vegetables. I have celery and carrots. I like to add those because they're really high in vitamins and nutrients, and especially the carrots are really high in that beta carotene. I have about 2 cups of each because I like a lot of vegetables. And you can add whatever types of vegetables you have on hand. Those are just the 2 that I had. This next vegetable might be one that is a little unusual to you, but it's really good that you get to know it and get to use it more often. It's called burdock. And I'm seeing burdock more and more often at the grocery store. I did find this at the co-op, but sometimes you can find it at any well-stocked grocery store too. When you buy it, it looks like this. It's a really long taproot, kind of like a carrot, and it even tastes a little like a carrot. It has kind of that sweet undertone to it. I have peeled and chopped the burdock root, and I'm actually storing it in some water. As soon as it's exposed to air, it turns dark. So I did keep this in a little bit of water, and I'm going to go ahead and put that into my stew. The burdock is really restorative and really helps boost the energy. It's a superior tonic vegetable. It's really preventative as well as medicinal, high in vitamins, minerals. I like to include burdock as a food in soups and stews, or even shredded with some seasoning on it, or even in teas, especially for people that have any kind of skin disorders. It really helps feed the liver and therefore helps feed the skin. They're both very closely connected. And it tastes really good, so I'm really surprised we don't use more burdock. Then I have another unusual ingredient, but one that we should get to know better as well, and that is dandelion greens. These you can go right out in your yard and find, as long as your yard hasn't been sprayed. I did find these right at the grocery store, and again, you can probably find it at any well-stocked grocery store or at the co-op or health food store. I'm seeing it more and more often. People are finally catching on as to how incredible this is. It really helps feed the kidneys and the liver. Very high in nutrients and minerals, great source of calcium, one of the most nutritious foods that we can eat. So we really want to be incorporating it more often. Very rejuvenative to the system, so I like to put it into this soup. That was about 2 cups of the dandelion greens. And those you can even eat in your salad. I like to cut them up and put them in with my lettuce. Adds a slight bitter flavor, which you'll actually learn to really like after a while. But very, very healthy. Then one of the best for the immune system is my favorite, is the shiitake mushrooms. And I try to put shiitake mushrooms in all kinds of things. I'll put them in omelets. I'll put them in casseroles, soups, stews. I try to get them into just about everything because they're really one of the most powerful immune boosting remedies that we have. And they taste really good. This is 5 shiitakes cut up, and you can see that they're nice and bright white. You want to make sure that they're nice and fresh. So we'll put that right into the stew. And I also have onion. Onion tastes great. It seems like it's always in soups and stews. It's kind of one of those, mandatory that has to go in. But really, the onion has a lot of medicinal benefits. It's really good for the heart, the digestive system, and also the respiratory system. So very important food. A lot of the alliums are like that. The onion is the strongest, but even leeks and chives and all those related onion plants have a lot of those medicinal values. Then I also like to always include my seaweed. So the seaweed is really great for just general overall health. I like to use kelp as one of my favorites. And you can add as little or as much as you like. I'm going to put 2 big pinches in there. So this is probably about 3 tablespoons worth. And it also is salty. So you will not have to add any salt to this stew. And actually with all of the flavors in here, it really is very good tasting. Then finally, I have my medicinal herbs. And I include garlic in the medicinal herbs, even though a lot of us consider it food and we cook with it all the time. It is just one of the most amazing medicinals that we have, so I consider it more in the medicinal category, even though it also really tastes good. It's very high in antioxidants, very wonderful at boosting the immune system. In fact, one of the best, right up there with the shiitakes. Also helps lower cholesterol and lower blood pressure. Very good to include in the diet as often as possible. Then I have a few unusual herbs. These you can probably find at your co-op or health food store, or you might be able to find them at an herb shop if you have one of those in your town. And you can certainly order them online from the resources that I've provided for you. But these really have a lot of benefits and are worth keeping in your cupboard to include in soups and stews and other foods on occasion as much as you can. One of my favorites is astragalus. Looks like this, kind of like these long tongue depressors. And this I will put into the stew, but when I'm ready to serve it, I will actually remove this. These are not to be eaten. But as the stew boils, the medicinal constituents that are in the astragalus will come out into the soup. So very good to add. The astragalus is really a wonderful tonic, very energizing. Helps really with the immune system, especially in cases of chronic illnesses. Try to get as much astragalus. And you can even make astragalus into a tea with other various ingredients if you like. Next I have the lycium berries. A little unusual looking, but they're worth adding because they really do restore and replenish the energy. So I'm going to put about a tablespoon of those in. And then finally I have about a tablespoon of Codonopsis, which helps boost the immune system, also can help reduce blood pressure, and is very good for the nervous system. So especially those that have been hospitalized or that aren't feeling well, can really help nourish and tone the nervous system. Very nice to add for that. Then I'm simply going to bring this up to a boil, and once it does, I'm going to turn it down and let it simmer for about an hour until that barley is nice and cooked. And if you need to at certain times to add more water, go ahead, keep an eye on it. You don't want to just walk away. So you might need to, from time to time, add a bit more water. This is really delicious. I know you and those that you care for will absolutely enjoy it. Whether or not you're feeling under the weather, it is a fabulous stew. Cabbage salad is really simple to make, and it's absolutely nutrient dense, and it has quite a few superfoods in it. It starts with the cabbage. I have both red and green cabbages here, but you could use either one. Cabbage is part of a larger family of cruciferous vegetables. So it includes broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale, and they all have wonderful compounds in them that help prevent cancer. So excellent to try to get into our diet as often as possible. And this is a really delicious way. To the cabbage, I'm going to be adding onion, which has its own medicinal values, surprisingly. It really is wonderful for the heart and circulatory system. It's also excellent for the digestive system and the respiratory system. I have a half a cup of red onion, very thinly sliced. I'm going to add to the salad, followed by carrots. So this is 1 carrot shredded. I like to keep the skin on the carrot. I don't like to peel it because there's valuable medicinal constituents there that you don't want to lose. Just wash it real well, grate it up, and add that to the salad. Carrots are really high in beta-carotene, which is a precursor to vitamin A. And vitamin A is just wonderful for the eyes, the skin, the mucous membranes. Has a lot of really great benefits to it. And then I'm also going to add cilantro just because I love the flavor of it. That's about 2 tablespoons, heaping tablespoons of the cilantro. And then I'm going to make the sauce that we're going to put over the salad, or the dressing as you might want to call it. It's going to start with a 1/4 cup of tamari, which is a really nice quality form of soy. So it's going to add that nice salty flavor to it, and also a really nice, wonderful tamari flavor. And to that, I'm going to add honey. So I have 1/8 cup of honey here. Make sure that when you purchase your honey, it's always raw. So you want to make sure that you still have those really good beneficial enzymes in the honey. You don't want those cooked out of the honey. And then I also am going to add some sesame oil. And sesame oil really deeply nourishes the system. Very high in zinc, so it's very good for boosting collagen, so excellent for the skin. I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of the sesame oil. You can also use toasted sesame oil, which has very good flavor to it. It's a little stronger, so you want to reduce the amount. And I'm also going to add in a tablespoon of grated ginger. Excellent flavor. And ginger is one of the most anti-inflammatory foods and remedies that we have. And then finally, you can add a little cayenne, add it to taste. Cayenne can be very strong, and so some people can't tolerate it as well as others. I happen to like a lot of cayenne. I'm going to put just 2 dashes, which is actually quite a bit. You might want to just only put 1 dash. And then simply whisk that together. I'm just using a fork, but if you happen to have a whisk, you can whisk it with that as well. So you just want to mix up the oil and the tamari, get that whisked really well. And the honey will whisk right in there with it. And then simply pour that over the top of all of the other ingredients. And I'm just going to simply toss this together and eat.